Hello, and welcome to this lecture on Whmis 2015. Now, Whmis is the Workplace Hazardous Material Information System. We're going to talk about what exactly that means, individual rights and responsibilities, hazard groups, classes, categories, and pictograms, Whmis labels, and lastly, the safety data sheets. Now, this is a new form of Whmis, but the old form that came in 1988 is still in effect. You still need to know it because there are still products out in the workplace, legacy products that are going to be around for a long time. But this lecture is going to be focused on the new Whmis, Whmis 2015. Whmis is a Canada-wide system. It provides employers and workers with information about hazardous products that are used in the workplace. And now it's aligned with the Global Harmonized System, GHS. The idea is to standardize classification of hazardous products so that hazardous products coming from another part of the world into Canada are still recognizable as hazardous products with the various remedies available. Now there's three ways under which information on hazardous products is provided. There's labels on containers. There are safety data sheets that have detailed hazard and precautionary information. And there's a workers' education program. You need to be able to understand what it is you're looking at and being exposed to before you're going to be exposed to it. And the idea is that by creating awareness and understanding, and by communicating health and safety information, we can reduce injury and disease in the workplace. You should know that there are 4 routes of entry into the body. You can inhale something. You can eat something. It can be absorbed into your skin, or it can be injected into your skin. And that's why there is personal protective equipment for specific purposes, and depending on the hazard that you're going to be facing, you need to know what that PPE is going to be. Responsibilities. Suppliers, employers, and workers have responsibilities, and these very closely mimic the responsibilities you'll find in the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Suppliers' responsibilities. They are responsible to classify hazardous products that they produce or that they import for sale into Canada. They have to provide the supplier label on hazardous products and provide precautionary information. They also must provide safety data sheets to anyone who purchases their products. Employers' responsibilities. Employers have to keep an inventory of all their hazardous products. They have to ensure that the required label is present on all hazardous products. They have to make available all safety data sheets on all hazardous products, and that means they have to maintain those safety data sheets. If there are changes to them, they are responsible for incorporating those changes. And they have to train and educate workers on Whmis. Workers have to participate in training, have to not just participate in training, but be able to apply that training in daily tasks. You have to be able to report hazards, such as missing labels and unsafe storage, to your supervisor or manager. Along with your responsibilities, you've got rights. These rights can be found directly from the Occupational Health and Safety Act. You've got the right to know, you've got the right to refuse unsafe work, and you've got the right to participate in matters concerning health and safety in the workplace. Whmis 2015 has subdivided 2 classes of hazards, physical hazards and health hazards. Physical hazards are based on properties of a material. For example, something can burst into flame, or it can react. There are 19 physical hazard classes. Health hazards are hazards that have got the ability to make you sick. For example, eye irritation or respiratory systems. There are 11 health hazard classes. Some hazardous products have more than one hazard inherent in them, so they can belong to more than one hazard class. When it comes to pictograms, you can find more than one pictogram on a hazardous material. Classifying hazards. Both physical and health hazard classes are subdivided into categories and subcategories. In other words, there's the most severe, less severe categories. You need to be able to recognize these pictograms and what they tell you. They've got red diamond surrounds, except biohazards. Now this is a little different. You might remember the red circles around these pictograms. That's the old system. This chart is directly from the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health, and it explains what each of these pictograms means. These are the hazard pictograms for physical hazards. These are the pictograms for health hazards. These are some types of physical hazards. Flammable gases. A flammable gas is a physical hazard. Flammable solids are a physical hazard. Oxidizing gases are a physical hazard, as are pyrophoric liquids or solids. The flame is a physical hazard that should be recognizable. It means that something can ignite or react on its own, resulting in a fire or an explosion. You have to keep these away from ignition sources. An exploding bomb is a physical hazard, and it means that something, a hazardous product, can react on its own or with heat, in resulting in a fire or explosion. Flame over circle. This one means that the hazardous product can cause or intensify a fire or explosion, and you need to store these away from flammable products. Gas cylinder means that something's under pressure and it can explode. You have to keep this away from heat and protect it from elements or unintended damage. Corrosion. A corrosive material, it can eat into metals, which means it can eat into you, and you need to be able to use this in well-ventilated areas and wear the appropriate PPE. Health hazard pictograms. These are 4 health hazard pictograms. These are types of health hazards. Skin corrosion, eye damage, germ cell mutagenicity. That means changing your DNA. Specific target organ toxicity. An aspiration hazard. Carcinogenicity means getting cancer. The first health hazard pictogram is the health hazard. This means that a hazardous product can produce acute or chronic adverse health effects. Don't eat or drink where this product is being used, and make sure you practice good hygiene. Wash up after you're finished using it. This is the next health hazard pictogram, the exclamation mark. It also produces acute, chronic, or adverse health effects. Don't eat or drink where this product is being used, and practice good hygiene. Skull and crossbones is a universally recognized symbol. It means that you shouldn't be drinking this stuff or eating this stuff. It's fatal or toxic or harmful, at least, if it comes into contact with your skin or if you inhale or eat it. Don't eat or drink this product or where it's being used, and practice good hygiene. Corrosion appears also as a health hazard as well as under the physical hazards. Being corrosive to metals means it can eat into you. Use it in a well-ventilated area and wear the appropriate PPE. Lastly, biohazardous infectious materials. This doesn't have the red diamond around the symbol. It's got the black circle around it, and it means that materials that are classified as biohazards can cause or are a probable cause of infection of some sort. Labels. There are two types of labels: supplier labels and workplace labels. A supplier label has got the name of the product, it has got the hazard pictograms, it's got a hazard statement, for example, fatal if swallowed. It's got a signal word, in this case danger. The signal word could also be warning. It's got a precautionary statement, wear protective gloves, or similar. A workplace label. If hazardous material is moved from a supplier container into another container, a workplace label has to be placed on that container. And it has to have the name of the product. It has to have safe handling precautions, such as wear protective gloves. It's got to have a reference to the safety data sheet that has also got to be available on from the employer, and says something like, see the safety data sheet for more information. Duties regarding safety data sheets. A supplier has to provide the safety data sheet with a hazardous product, and that safety data sheet has to identify hazards of the product, safe handling, how to recognize symptoms of exposure, and emergency response. Now, if you've had any safety training before, you'll recognize these four, because anytime you come into a workplace, you're supposed to be able to identify the hazards in that workplace, eliminate the hazards in that workplace, or at least mitigate the hazards of that workplace, and you should always know the emergency plan. The employer has a responsibility to maintain and update and make available safety data sheets to all workers. If the information changes for a hazardous material, the employer has a responsibility to update the safety data sheet with the new information. A worker has to be familiar with the hazards of a product before being exposed to it, before using it. If you're not sure what it is you're being asked to deal with, have a look at the safety data sheet for product identification, the hazards that it poses, and prevention and emergency response. Alright. The safety data sheet. Safety data sheet has got exactly 16 sections. The 16 sections are product identifiers, hazard identification, ingredients of the hazardous product, first aid measures, firefighting measures, accidental release measures, handling and storage, exposure controls, physical and chemical properties, stability and reactivity, toxicological information, ecological information, disposal considerations, transportation information, regulatory information, and other information that might not fit into any of the top 15 categories. That took a little while. We've talked about the Whmis 2015 system. What is the Workplace Hazardous Material Information System? Talked about the rights and responsibilities of various persons, the two hazard groups and the classes that they're broken into, Whmis labels, supplier labels and workplace labels, and the safety data sheets. If you've got any questions about this stuff, I highly recommend that you go to the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, CCOHS. You can find them at this address. Thanks for watching.